apartheid South Africa. Huge oppression of brown and black people in South Africa. Didn't matter about my mind, it mattered about the color of my skin. It didn't matter what I could give to the world at the time. Totally brutal towards my mom, especially. I remember him starting to beat my mom like he was like hitting her, like kind of sense. So he took this gun and he cracked her skull open. The next time I seen my dad, he was dead. He was executed. He was shot in the head. I could always draw. It was something that I used to use to kind of escape when I was a kid. I got into the studio, and my progression was like rapid, like super fast. I got invited to a studio in Hollywood and to be the best. Nobody gets to tell you who you are and who you'll ever be.
Brendon, thanks very much for joining us in the podcast, mate.
Thank you for having me, brother.
How are you today?
Yeah, not bad. Getting there. I lost my wee pup recently, so
it's tough going. I don't think it's something that, unless people have pets or dogs, they'll not really understand how close a connection you can form with them. So Brendon, we first met a few months ago when I came to your tattoo shop.
Yeah.
You covered up my monstrosity tattoo that I got when I was 15 and done an incredible job.
Thank
and then
you.
I came back for another one.
I know.
A month later.
It says something, I guess you came back.
And I remember meeting you. I was jealous. I was jealous when I met you because I was like, this guy's cool. He's just cool, man. And then you open your mouth and you've got the most soothing, mixed up South African Scottish accent I've ever heard. And just the way that you express yourself, the style and stuff, I was like, man, I'm jealous of this guy.
Yeah.
Honestly, and that's why we got chatting and I kind of found out more about you. But I think it was pretty obvious when we first started speaking that although you're a very successful tattoo artist now, and we'll talk certainly more about that as the podcast goes on, life wasn't always easy for you. And when we've been chatting off camera, I've actually been gobsmacked with some of the stuff that you've had to go through. So tell us a little bit more about your life growing up during the apartheid in South Africa, born in 1985, the same age as myself.
Yeah.
Obviously totally different cultures, totally different upbringings as far as how tough life was for you from all angles. So kick us off, take us back to day one basically, and we'll work through the podcast to your life until now.
Day one. So I was born to a young mom. My mom was 18 when she had me. Born in apartheid South Africa. Apartheid, for anybody that doesn't know, huge oppression of brown and black people in South Africa by the Caucasian race, so we call them white people in South Africa. You were always led to be a second-class citizen, and that's what my parents were. They grew up in poverty-stricken families, essentially. So when I came into the world, I came into that life. My mom, you're a really young woman, having to fend for us most of the time. My dad was a soldier, so he was away a lot of the time on like border patrol and stuff.
Okay.
I wouldn't see him for lengths of time, but I have just very vivid memories of exact moments in time that I saw him, and there were never any happy memories, if you will. They were never, it was always violent.
To both your mum and yourself and your brother?
I would say yes. My brother, he's a year and a half difference in age, so he's younger than me. So I hope he doesn't remember half the stuff that I have kept in. Totally brutal towards my mom, especially. I could give you an example. One time my dad came back from border patrol, and he didn't know that I was one of the kids I was playing about with all these little kids on the street kind of thing. And I saw my dad, and I was like, "Oh, that's my dad." But you know, I really, really wanted to run up to him, and like, you know, it's my dad.
Yeah.
It was the only figure in my life that I thought, oh, the world of at the time. And then he goes into the shop, right, and he meets this girl, and I was like, "Oh, who is that?" Like, you know, like, and I was like, okay, so I just stood there like stuck, and I was like, what's going on? And he went to buy this like bar of chocolate, you know, Cadbury's chocolate, which is something I never even tasted in my life or anything like that. And I was like, wow, oh God, he's going to bring this for me. Like, you know, like so excited. But it turned out he bought it for that girl that day. Like, so he didn't even, like, he came home, but he didn't even come home to see me or my mom. He came to see somebody else, and he brought them a gift kind of thing, like, you know.
Just total rejection from your father. You had seen him. There was the one time that you were just so happy to see him, and he basically just pretended you weren't there.
Well, he didn't even see me. This is the thing, like, you know, like he was doing all these things, kind of. He thought it was under the radar. So I ran home, and I didn't know much better. I was just a child, man. I must have been like 4.5, like 5 years old. And I told my mom, like, this is what happened, like, you know. And I didn't see my dad until later on that night because he needed a place to stay. Right? And we were staying in this one bedroom that smelt of dog. Really, that's my memory of the place. And he came home, and a huge argument broke out. And I remember him starting to beat my mom, like he was like hitting her, like kind of senseless. And she went to grab his gun and pointed at him, you know. But I don't think she had the heart to, like, you know, pull the trigger. Like, so he took this gun and he cracked her skull open on her head, the whole top of her head kind of thing, like, and she was bleeding everywhere. And then he just left us there, like, you know, like I was in the middle of stuff because I was trying to stop it from happening.
Yeah, but you were only 5.
Exactly, and obviously he didn't care. So he just left her there, and you know, she came to her senses eventually, like, you know, she grabbed me and she put me on her shoulders because it was kind of the only way she could carry me, like, and we walked to the police station and we were both covered in blood and stuff like that. And we get to the police station. This is apartheid South Africa, like, you know, like we're brown people, like, nobody cares about you, you know, like she asked for help and they were like, what did you do, kind of thing, like, you know, like, it was
really
like,
just put the blame back on her.
Exactly. It was like, well, there's not,
he needed an excuse. What have you done to
exactly.
Jesus. So is that basically your earliest memory of your dad?
Of my father. That's my first genuine memory of him, like,
and that's
kind of
etched
thing,
in
like,
your mind
I'll
forever.
never forget it. It's like I can literally paint the picture of exactly how it looked like. So
what happened then? Was that enough to separate your mum and dad, or did he come back?
No. My mum was still a kid, isn't it? Like, you know, she was just learning about the world. She hadn't been educated to a high enough level to understand that, you know, she needed to protect herself from this. Like, she thought it was just normal because that's the world we grew up in. Like, when you grow up in poverty and, you know, the street kind of life, like, it's something that you learn to accept, that you're just going to accept this abuse all the time from everywhere that it comes from, you know, like, you see a white policeman, he's probably more likely to kill you than anybody. So, and get away with murder. Exactly. Yeah. So
there was no protection whatsoever in place for yourself or your mum and your brother?
Zero.
So how did life progress then? Like, did you you spoke off camera about your dad being heavily involved in gambling, and that was the way that you kind of first got you got your first family home, if you want to call it?
First family home, yeah. So he had took us to the horse races the one day, and I was like, oh God, like, okay, this is cool. Like, I've never been to anything like that before. And we weren't even in the place. We were outside like the fences,
Right.
because obviously like the white folks would be in there all dolled up and stuff like that there. But we're sitting out,
Aye.
and you can't even see anything. Like,
Right,
we're
okay.
just sitting at the fences and listening to the sound. And yeah, that day apparently won like loads of money and could afford to buy a house and a car and furnish the place and things like that. And at this time, my mom had forgiven him for so many wrongings to her.
Was there an age difference? Was your dad a good bit older?
He was about 5 years older than my mom.
Not too much.
Not too much, really. So he got this house with this gambling money. We only had it for, if we had it for a year, then we would have been winning.
Yeah.
But I don't think we did.
What happened? Did they gamble it and lose it? Or?
To be honest, like, because I was so young, I can't exactly remember what had happened, but I remember stuff that happened in this house that was just so nasty, man. Like, but yeah, I'm not sure what he was doing.
Really?
Yeah, for us to lose everything, because the one day the sheriff of the court came to the house, chapped the door, and the next thing you know, my mom, me, and my brother are sitting outside with the house locked and
Nowhere to go.
everything
Back on the streets.
zero on the street, mate. Yeah.
So not long after that, he kind of finally came back and made another promise to yourselves that you were going to start a new life in another town.
Yeah.
He then took you to that place and said he would return. Is that right?
He did, yeah. But my memory, so it started, this memory going to that was he, I don't know what I had done to him one of the days, or I was being naughty or something of that nature. Well, deeming something naughty to him was like, putting something out of place or leaving something somewhere or something like that there. And I remember he took his shoelaces off his boots, his army boots, and he tied me up, and he threw me into a dark cupboard, and he locked me in there for like a whole day. Yeah. And then
When you were still around about 5 at this point?
I think I was just edging on 5 years old, yeah. And then he took us up to a place called Ladysmith, which is 3 hours away from where I was actually born. We knew nobody or anything like that. He had left us there with like his cousin, some far relative, and said like he's just going to pick up our stuff and come back. And I didn't see him for months. And these people that we had stayed those few nights with were like, there's no way we can keep you here. So
he just basically dumped his 2 children and his wife, basically.
he just left us there, like literally for dead kind of thing, and we ended up staying in a garage for approximately 10 months or so. My mom ended up getting a job at like a cassette factory or something of that nature. So I was staying at home, being that age, looking after my brother. I learned how to make toast with a hanger. So that's what we used to eat, like, just bread. Stale bread, scrape off
just
the
scraps,
grain
basically.
and whatever. And just do that kind of thing.
So when was the next time you seen your dad?
The next time I seen my dad, he was dead.
Actual physically seen him?
Physically seen him, like, lying on a table like this.
Explain that. Jesus.
So, have no idea what took place, but obviously he was involved in gambling, and he was a notorious kind of person. He was a soldier as well, really well trained at loads of things. He was executed. He was shot in the head, actually in the eardrum, in the left eardrum kind of thing. So when I saw him lying on this table, they had to pack his face with lots of stuff, and all I can remember, the smell is so distinct, and there was baby powder, to try and mask the smell, but his eyes were still open, and.
So why, Brendan? Why were you there to see that? Was it to identify him, or why were you taking it?
No, so I wasn't identifying him. This was at his just before his funeral.
Right, I see.
So
right, okay.
Culturally, we had to kind of cleanse the body, being his sons,
really?
And stuff even though we were the age that we were and stuff, highly traumatic experience.
Totally.
I remember that, I was like, but I don't remember shedding a tear. I just, I was still a kid, man. I was a baby.
What age were you then?
I was, I think 5.5.
Oh, so it was quite soon after.
All this happened
in
really
a very short space of time.
Quickly altogether, yeah.
Do you think, obviously there would have still been sadness, the fact that the man who was your biological father, but he was never a father to you, did you still feel sad that you no longer had a dad, or was there, even at that young age, and you might not be able to remember, obviously, was there a relief there that this, in effect, monster who had been so cruel to both yourself, your younger brother, and your mum, was now no longer a threat?
This was the only life I knew. I didn't know that there was anything better.
Right. Okay.
I didn't know that, you could have something better than this.
Did you think that basically all children?
Everybody has the same life, and yeah, that's how I felt about the situation then. Empathy. I've always been kind of an emotional person. Yeah. You could hurt me physically as much as you wanted to. I don't feel that kind of pain, but mentally heavily scarred. So yeah, sometimes I think back on my dad, and I wish, I had a dad. Yeah. But I'm glad I had my mom. Yeah. Because she's more man than he would have ever been, Have you ever, in South Africa at that time, which I probably could guess the answer to, was there any support for yourselves in terms of dealing with the violent death of your father, or the country or the state looking after you in any way, or was it you basically left to fend for yourself? With that, we were kind of lucky that he was still a part of the forces. Right, yeah. So they provided a check kind of every month, which was called the Widows and Orphans kind of fund, which we were lucky enough to get. But I mean, you're talking about £30 a month.
Yeah. It's just enough to just get by on.
No, you couldn't get by. No. It was just something. It's just to say, well, okay, we're giving you something because, this guy worked for us and he died. We're doing our duty by giving you a little bit, but we're not going to give you enough to survive. Definitely not. No.
There was no help for the actual mental trauma that you had to
go through? None whatsoever.
So as is common, when especially females kind of face domestic abuse, especially when it's all they've ever known, and when your mum was so young, she didn't know any better, she had never had a relationship with someone decent, that kind of led to the following relationships becoming abusive as well with new partners.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to go into the new partners and the terrible things that they done. I want to more to get into how you dealt with that, Brendan, because you're a highly intelligent guy. You get that very quickly after speaking to you, even chatting, doing the tattoo. You're spending that was a marathon 10 hours with each other, that one session. So you talk a lot. But how did you manage to focus and excel at school? Because you talk about that, you excelled at school, even though your world round about you was in absolute turmoil. Was that a focus for you? Was that something that you could take your mind into your studies? Or were you just naturally gifted in that way?
Well, first of all, thank you for noticing, I guess. I felt like I was never kind of noticed in life or ever seen until I put my mind to things like, that were in my control, because everything wasn't in my control. Well, 90% of my life wasn't in my control. Yeah. But going to school, I could be somebody else. Yeah. I wasn't that same person at home. I wasn't admired in that way or anything like that. But when I was at school, I did have a knack for having a great attention span, and would absorb information. Yeah. And I was always a dreamer, so I always dreamt of big things. The ancient Egyptians, I was like, I'm going to be an archaeologist. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Like, next thing, a cosmetologist, an astronaut, whatever. Like, I was like, at school, the world was my oyster. Yeah. At home, I was in prison. Like,
so that school offered you a freedom there to let your mind explore places that you just weren't ever going to see physically.
It did. It really did. I excelled at sports. I was always first in my class. I took awards for distinctions when I was in primary school. I was the head boy of my school. Just a lowly kid, but that nobody knew. And, I reached a certain height, and I don't know if my family or my mom actually saw what I was able to achieve with the little that we had.
So were you just working away in silence, basically? You weren't getting recognition for it out with the school, basically. Tell me about the time where the teacher basically put a stop to your not studies, but school became a difficult place for you after this teacher.
So this teacher was notorious for corporal punishment in school, and every kid, even the teachers, I think, even the headmaster at the time, feared this guy. I don't know what kind of power he had, but he had this certain mentality that, punishing somebody is the only way, kind of thing, to get them in line and whatever, obviously nobody believes in that here, but there was a huge thing, and it stemmed down from a white society right down into our society. It was more visible in our society because that's all you were taught. So anyway, he had come to the class. You could see he had this look on his face. I'm certain something bad must have happened that day, and he was upset about something, and he needed to vent, So I turned around. I was the head boy at this time. Looked in my bag for this piece of homework that he was asking for, and he was at the chalkboard, and he turned around and he saw me digging into my bag for my homework, which I had. I just needed to look for it. And everybody was doing it, but he's looking at me, I just caught his eye at that moment in time, and he called me forward to the front of the class. So I was like, okay. So I woke up and I went towards him, and he started hitting me as if I was a man, he was beating me, open palms, fist punching my back, slapping my face and everything like that, and it took a lot for me to actually cry because I was very strong. So he hit me and I started crying, and it humiliated me in front of people that actually respected me, but the only people that respected me.
Do you think that was his way of stopping your progress, and maybe seeing that you were excelling as a student, and he wanted to have some control over that, put you back in your place almost? Or do you think that's maybe not the case, and it was just the fact he was so violent, it just happened to be you that was the target that day?
So the worst part about this, right? This teacher loved me.
Right, okay.
I was his star student. I was the best at literally everything. And he made me the head boy because he was in charge of us and stuff like that.
How perverse is that?
And it just felt like he needed to show some kind of power that day or vent for something. And he just chose me.
What a head fuck that must have been, even at that age.
Because, he was like kind of a father figure to me, because I obviously didn't have a father. And then he took that away from me as well. Like, so I trusted nobody. And it changed the way I looked at society and the world. And I became like angry and, vengeful kind of thing. Like,
was this still primary school at this point?
This was the end of primary school. That was the final.
So age-wise, similar to 11, 12?
12.
Yes. So did that affect you then going on to high school?
High school, 100%. Like, I got to high school and I was angry. I didn't want to excel at anything anymore. I didn't want to be the best at everything because it's like, what is it worth? It seems to be worth nothing because nobody actually cares about you.
Yeah.
And what can I do? I'm just a child. I have to go home, live in this prison, have to come to school. I don't know when is the next time. Like, I don't know how long I'm actually even going to live for because, I would walk 3 kilometers to school, and in between my area and school, there were like kind of enemies.
Yeah.
So I could get stabbed, I could get shot,
Was did that kind of gang violence, did that kind of become a part of your life as well at that point?
Oh yeah, I had to kind of, so we moved, when I went to high school, we moved to another really bad neighborhood, really poor, a lot of drug dealing, violence, gangsters everywhere you look. Like, you walk to school and you see people smoking drugs on the side of the streets,
right,
and
okay.
loads of blood splattered on the ground, kind of weapons disposed of, like a homemade kind of things, and things like that.
There was no order there. It was just a free for all. Basically, there was no control in that area.
No, control. Left to die. Left to die.
Just forgotten about. So we'll go back to your kind of home life, and your mum met a new partner. You touched on this off camera, but he actually maybe even turned out to be worse than your father.
Yeah. Because I think this is my like proper formative years, my teenage life, where this guy, he mind control. So he controlled my mom to believe everything that he said was God's word kind of thing, like, because we were bad kids, we're terrible. And he hated us because we were older when he got with my mom, like, so he never ever took to us.
Do you think he seen you as basically a threat to the attention that he was receiving from your mum?
1,000,000%. And then also I think he just had this evil in him that, he wanted to oppress us. So he, at home, we would have chores to do, right? But other kids would be able to leave the house and things like that, but we weren't allowed to leave. Like, you had to scrub the tiles on the roof, or, do all the guttering, cut the grass, polish the car, shine this, do that, blah, blah, blah. Every other day of the week, like, you wake up in the morning, you're making lunches, then you're washing the dishes, and then you're going to school. You're coming back and you spread bleach all over everything, and it's all dried into every surface. Now you have to come home from school and you have to scrub all of that off and things like that. So obviously you don't get a beating or you don't get in trouble. And He
There was no time to be a child then. There was no friends.
Zero.
There was no socialising. There was no going out to play rugby, play football, whatever sport or anything. It was just such an oppressive and almost like you were a form of slavery in your own home.
It was. I genuinely felt like I was in prison. I literally just lived there behind these bars, and that was it. And you go to school and you come back. Hopefully you survive the walk home. Yeah. That was that.
So did it get to a point where you thought, you know, this life is just not worth living for me anymore?
Yeah. So because of what he used to do to control everything in the house. I mean, like when he left the house, he would take away all the plug sockets and things like that.
Really?
To control, like, so that you couldn't put the telly on, you couldn't put the lights on, you couldn't boil the kettle, you couldn't do any of these things. Like,
almost like I was just imprisoned, almost in a dungeon, really. Do you know?
That's literally what it was, like, you know. And then I remember the one day he was drunk and he pulled my brother out of bed and he ran a cold shower and he was trying to force my brother into this cold shower, and I was trying to fend him off, and I lost my shit basically. Mm-hmm. And I actually wanted to kill him at this point in time, and he got a knife. He tried to stab us. My mom came in between. I think she got cut, and she was trying to hold him off and told us to basically leave, to run, kind of thing. Like, and I actually wanted to stay, and I was ready to die.
You just wanted to fight him?
I was ready to die, honest to God. Like, I was like, my brother, because we went through so much together, like, my brother is my life, kind of thing, like, you know, like, and you can do anything you want to me, but nothing to him, like, you know. So
obviously you were the father that he never had.
Exactly.
Neither of you had it, but because you were only a year and a half, 2 years older, Brendon, you would have had that kind of, just goes to show the nature that you've got. You were his protector, and at points you just couldn't protect him from what was happening.
No. So I thought, after that happened, I never came home for like a month and nothing changed. So I tried to commit suicide, thinking, you know, if I did this, my mom would see what was actually happening here and might leave this guy, and then my brother would have a better life, you know.
So you thought by taking, that was a way just to make your mum realise how hard and how difficult life had become for you, that maybe she would then save. Obviously, she's not to blame here. She was obviously living a life that was horrendous for her as well.
She didn't know any better. She really didn't. Like, you know, at the time I blamed her a lot.
Yeah,
I did. I hated her at points, like, you know, like, for what she was putting me and my brother through. But yeah, like, choosing to end my life, stupidly thinking, like, you know, like, this would actually help the situation out. Obviously, it was very, very naive of me to think that way, but I was a kid and I thought this was the only way I could save my brother.
And what did you do? What was your method that you tried?
So I took every pill that I could find in the house, and it didn't take long. I collapsed, and the next thing you know, I found myself in hospital. I was there for about 3 weeks. They had pumped my stomach and all sorts of stuff. But my stepdad made my mom believe that I took a drug overdose. Yeah, okay. I made her believe that I was a drug addict.
Fuck. So it didn't change anything? You came
Zero.
Home.
It came home. It was even worse when I came home. Like, you know, like, now I'm a drug addict and I'm having to go to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting with actual drug addicts that like shoot up heroin and things like that, like, you know, like, and I was like, and not just me, made my mom believe my brother was a drug addict as well, like, you know. And at this moment in time, I hated drugs. I couldn't stand it because that's all I saw.
Yeah.
And my neighborhood just smelled like a weed. It grew within the cracks of the concrete everywhere. And all the hard drugs you can think of was at this neighbor or that neighbor or there.
If you wanted
literally.
it was there.
But it wasn't something that I was into. I never was, like, so.
So it didn't help matters.
It just made it worse. It made it worse. Now I was an addict.
How was you and your brother's relationship at this point?
I mean, my brother and I, we had a lot of anger in us, so we used to vent a lot.
Towards each other?
Towards each another at times, like sometimes you couldn't take it. Like I was like, oh God, like that's it. So we used to fight like cats and dogs, but my love for my brother is like super deep. Like that's a bond that will never break no matter what happens. But I still support them. I support him and my mom.
Good. So talking about your high school years, obviously you finished with distinctions again, even though your life had been full of such kind of trauma and turmoil. You didn't have the money to go to university to, I'm going to say, make the most out of that. I don't like that, because in today's world, if you're intelligent, then you must go to university and you must be successful in that kind of academic way. And we'll discuss how you've used your mind and your intelligence and your creativity and hand skills to reach where you are today in the world of tattooing. But at what point did you realise that South Africa was no longer going to be home for you, and you wanted to make a new start in a new country and live the life that you kind of deserved and craved?
So I think my complete breaking point was I was 18. I had got to study a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Bioprocessing Technology at the time, and we could only afford, it was 2 semesters of university. While I was in university, I had this girlfriend. She was mixed race, but she looked more white than she did like me. And at university, everyone had to mix. Like, I'd never been to school with a white person before, like, or anything like that.
So the schools, but they were still segregated, but university
wasn't? Completely. Like, so you were always segregated until you couldn't even live in their neighborhoods or anything like that.
So see, just out of interest, and sorry to digress, what race were the teachers? Was that, were they a variety of races in your school? Or
in my school, all the same races, as either mixed race, Black and Indian Asian,
right? Okay.
At the time, or
so you wouldn't have white teachers teaching at the school that you went to?
Never. No chance.
They wouldn't know themselves too
no
much.
Way. No way.
It's crazy that you're the teacher, and the abuse that was happening was of mixed race, or black or brown or whatever race that it was, and he could see how much your society and someone so young was getting oppressed on the outside by apartheid and white people, yet they still chose to oppress people of their own race within the safety of what should have been the safety of their school.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
So back to you and your girlfriend.
Back to the point. So me and my girlfriend, the one day we decided to go for a student night to a student nightclub, which was quite close to the university. So you'd have to produce like your student card to get in and things like that. So I went with her the one night that I could actually afford to. And I went to this nightclub with her, and she was before me in the queue, like she was standing in front of me. So they searched her. You have to be searched in South Africa like properly because of, guns, knives and stuff. So they searched her and just sent her through. They didn't even ask for a student card or anything like that. And they just stopped me, and they like proper frisked me. And then they were like, these were white bouncers at the door. they frisked me, and then they asked me for my student card, and I produced it. And then they were like, "Can I see your ID?" And I was like, "Why? You have my student card. Like, that's how you get in here. Like, really, like it tells you my age. It has my birth date and everything on here. Like, you know, like, and it's a student night." Yeah. So the guy is like, excuse my language, like, "Show me your fucking ID," kind of thing. So I took out my identity document, which I always carried on me because I knew that there would always be a problem, like, you know. So I gave it to this guy, and he looked at it, and he's like, he looked at the picture, he looked at the card, and he took both of them and he just threw them onto the street. And he's like, "Fuck off." And I was like, "But my girlfriend's in there, like, you know, like, I need to go get her, you know?" And I remember they refused to let me in, and they were obviously huge dudes, like, you know, like, and there was nothing that you could, exactly, and they wanted me to react so that they could hurt me, like, you know, like, and I didn't react. I sat in that gutter with my documents in my hand, and I was crying.
Could they see that?
No, because I was facing the opposite direction, and they didn't care, like, to be honest. And I was hoping that my girlfriend noticed that I wasn't in there, because we were going to meet, like, friends and stuff like that day and there, you know. And she eventually came out, like, you know, and that's in that gutter. I said, like, there's no way I'm gonna stay here. If I stay here, literally, I'm gonna die, you know. So yeah, did whatever I could. Got some money together, borrowed a little bit from my mom.
Was that the last time you seen your girlfriend?
Pretty much, yeah. That was it. Like, I was so embarrassed as well. Like, you know, like, I couldn't even.
Just felt worthless.
I was always a second-class citizen, but I never felt more worthless than that particular moment in time, because I was always never looked at as if I would be something or somebody or whatever. It doesn't matter my credentials, or I could study a certain degree and stuff like that there. It didn't matter about my mind. It mattered about the color of my skin. Like, you know, like, it didn't matter what I could give to the world at the time. So it hurt a lot. But I was obviously used to pain.
Fuck, so you were just 18 at the time? And that was you. You were like, "No, this world or this country is not for me anymore." No. But listen, there's not many 18-year-olds that would be brave enough, given the trauma and the just the shite life that you had led up until then, to gather whatever money you could get together, say goodbye to the family and friends that you still had, and travel to the other side of the world to make a new life for yourself.
Yeah, man,
You must be proud of yourself for that, mate. You must, especially the way that it's worked out.
You know what, like, I am kind of proud, but I wish, you know, everybody had the same opportunity, like, you know, like, because, you know, even though I was poor and I was hurting, there were other people that were in the same situation or even worse off, kind of thing. Like, you know, like, I wish I could have brought all of them with me.
We actually probably wish that you could have the life here in South Africa, back in the country that you were born, with your family and friends.
Oh, come on. Nobody wants to leave home,
no,
you know, like, nobody wants
home.
to, it's like everything, you know. So yeah, I had to leave all that behind, man.
What, if you could go back now and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? Why?
One piece of advice. Hold your head up high. Because it's not how they look at you. It's how you look at you that determines who you are. Nobody gets to tell you who you are and who you'll ever be. You make yourself. and you break yourself at the same time.
No, totally. Definitely. I think that I just even listening, man, like it's hard. It's hard actually not to get upset. Thinking, I'm trying to think of my life. We're exactly the same age, born in the same year, and yeah, in comparison to some people over here, I would say my life's not been perfect, but it's certainly been not anywhere near the level of what you had to experience during your time. Did you ever fear that you were going to become a product of your own environment that you were brought up in? Did you ever fear that you were going to be violent to your partner or wife, that you were going to not be capable of loving children, or just physical, aggressive, almost like everybody has anger, but did you ever think that weaponizing it was just going to be the way that you were going to live your life?
Well, I think when I was a teenager, that's how I felt. I felt like I was going to die in prison or die on the street, like kind of thing, like I'm ready to die, kind of thing, like, right? But that's with being violent. But I've always respected women. I've seen my mom go through like the worst brutalities like you could ever see. Like I've even fought off some of her abusers, like, you know, like as a child. And I never wanted to see another woman hurt like that. And God forbid it be by my hand, you know, like I'm obviously, I have PTSD and I've got like loads of issues in my head. I have anger issues, which I'm dealing with. And I think I've dealt with it pretty well because I'm still here.
I was just thinking, I cannot, and I'm sure it's not a pretty sight, but I actually can't picture you angry.
That's the thing, you know, like most people.
You're so softly spoken, you're so articulate in the way you speak. You just come across, and you just are a genuinely nice person. So everybody's got a line, though. Everybody can lose their shit. And it's good that everybody has that line, because people would take advantage otherwise. So do you feel that you're still dealing with a lot of issues from your childhood?
I think I'll never be able to get rid of any of them, but all I can do is, you know, just confine them to a certain part and just try. I've been for like cognitive behavioral therapy and things like that, trying to retrain my brain into how I think about the world and how I see everything, like, you know. But I've always been a huge believer in treating people the way you want to be treated. Like, you know, I've never been, although I had all the opportunity to be a racist towards other people and things like that, because that's all you were faced with, all you could see. Never ever have I looked at another person in a different way, like, ever. And yeah, I love taking care of people, and hands that grow things and look after things should never hurt you. They should never be able to break you. Nurturing.
What has your experience of moving to the UK taught you? Obviously, you're now, as we're just about to touch on, a very successful tattoo artist.
Yeah.
But you're now been in the UK for 20 years.
Yeah, well over actually. Yeah. I've been here a while. When I first came, I had no inkling of what actual, like, you know, the first world society was like. You know, I came here with summer clothing in November. I landed in London and I had to wear everything that I had in my bag. I had to put on my being, like, kind of thing. I had no job. I didn't know where I was going. I stayed in a few bus stations and things like that, and finally found a job that was like kind of live-in. It was to be a housekeeper in a hotel in Cambridge. So I had £70 in my pocket. So the first money, I used £20 at Virgin Mobile bastards to buy a SIM card with £10 of airtime on it, like kind of thing, just to
It cost you £20 to get £10 airtime.
Exactly. I was so mad about that.
That was in the days of 10 pence a text message as well.
I swear. So like to text home as well, like like and let people know that I was alive and I was okay. So that's what I did. Like I used that first £20 for that, and I just kept the money in my pocket. Like I didn't eat for a day or two. Waited until I could get a bus ticket, which was 40 quid. So I was left with a tenner by the time I got to Cambridge, and I had my first meal. The rest is actually quite history from there. Like I couldn't believe how society was here, how people looked at me like I was a human being. I was normal.
There was no. I'm not saying that it's never happened over here, because I dare say it probably has. But when you arrived, you were welcomed to the country. You seen it as a kind of land of opportunity, if you want to use that term.
Totally. I think like the first people I met were all people that were foreign.
Yeah.
And they all, I guess, knew what I felt like to be in a different place and things like that. And they were like super accepting of me. Everybody wanted to be my friend. I had interest from Italian girls and French. I was like, what is going on? You wouldn't believe it, but I actually looked all right back then, So having all of this attention and things like that, and seeing the way people live in the UK, it was like the world literally is your oyster as a child in this country.
Did you feel that life was just beginning for you at that point?
Literally just started because I was free.
I can just imagine, I can just picture you standing in London with the mind that you've got, and the daydreaming and the kind of the thoughts that just go through your head, and you're thinking, fuck, this is where I belong,
Exactly. I knew immediately, even though it was really tough in the beginning, it was lonely, spent my 21st birthday alone in the middle of nowhere kind of thing, but I moved up and down the country. I got all these dead-end jobs and things like that, and eventually got together with a girl. She was from the Czech Republic. We were together for ages. I moved to the Czech Republic for a little bit, and then I came back to the UK with her to make a better life kind of thing. She eventually ended up cheating on me. Couldn't believe it, man. How dare she, man? I was heartbroken.
As you can see now.
I was heartrbroken because she was like the first person I actually trusted. And was my first love. But
so why Scotland? Why the move?
Oh, Scotland. The first time I came to Scotland, I came with one of my friends. We got a megabus ticket for 50p from Victoria Station in London. And we were like, the party is really good in Scotland. People are nice, So we came here, and the first place I moved to was the Highlands, Fort William.
Ah, nice.
From London, central London.
You bypassed a few good stops on the way.
Oh, mate, I was like, I really loved the movie Lord of the Rings, I was on this the Citylink bus from Buchanan Station.
The drive up's beautiful.
Oh,
that's amazing.
But this was in February, and it looked miserable. It was raining heavily, but once we got into Glencoe, all the mist and fog, it was kind of mystical. It was quite scary. I was like, shit, we've got all these high mountains all of a sudden. I was like, I thought we were meant to be, in a good place, that we got this job kind of thing, because the lady was speaking Glaswegian, and I never heard a Glaswegian person speak before. I thought she said, we're just 20 minutes outside of Glasgow. 3 hours later, I'm still on the road, we got to Fort William, middle of nowhere. And yeah, I loved it, man. I absolutely loved it. Like, the people were great, really receptive. I did get a bit of racism here and there, being called a Paki, and I've never been to Pakistan in my life. Obviously,
it's just the word that's used by the fucking people in the Western world.
Yeah,
That have a distinct lack
it
of
was mainly like jealous dudes.
Yeah.
Because I used to hang around with like a huge crew of like beautiful girls and things like that, and they were foreign, like, and it was always about jealousy kind of thing, like. But so I didn't pay any attention because I've obviously received a lot worse than that, like, nothing. Yeah.
So lead us into the world of tattooing. How did that come about?
So tattooing, I could always draw. It was something that I used to use to kind of escape when I was a kid. I never had an art lesson or anything like that in my life. I saw the TV show Miami Ink.
Yeah, probably.
And I was like, I love tattoos. Like, I've got like gangster tattoos from the neighborhood, like, like when I was like 14 years old, okay. Like, So I always loved it. But I never thought it would ever be a profession or anything, because if you told somebody in South Africa that you were going to be an artist, they'd be like, so how are you going to feed your family?
Yeah, there's just no market.
Yeah, but here I could see there was major opportunity for it, like, so I eventually got an apprenticeship at a studio in the Highlands in Fort William. I had drawn a lot to try and get in there. My drawings were absolutely shite. They were terrible.
Compared to now, but back then, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Horrific. Like, so I took it and I showed this guy, and he looked at it and it's like, well, you need to be a lot better than this to be a tattoo artist. So I got into the studio. I was there for 2 months, and this guy, he had this old school mentality of how he's going to treat the apprentice and things like that. There's a huge stigma in the tattoo industry about, like, apprenticeships. Like, so I felt like I was in a prison camp, and the way this guy was talking to me and things like that. And I was basically running the studio for them because they were foreign kind of thing, and I was sitting at the desk talking to their clients and things like that. But I thought they were really nice guys at first. We still actually talk, to be honest. But I just didn't like the way he treated me, man. Like, so I was like, after 2 months, I was like, no, I will not be spoken to in this way, because I won't let it happen to me ever again. Like, So that's what I did, and I said, I'll just do it by myself. But that kind of broke my spirit, and I stopped everything from then. And I only picked it up again late in my 30s kind of thing, Really? So I've been a professional tattoo artist now for 3 years.
Right, okay.
Before that, I was practicing at home on, say, a client every 3 months, doing some stupid 40-pound tattoos and things like that, just so I could learn.
So basically a self-taught tattoo artist, really?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Studied YouTube, every video I could find on drawing first to perfect that. And then I could draw like realistic portraits to a proper realistic level. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to pick up a tattoo machine and do it by myself. So I didn't start like how people would start going and doing like line work and then learning how to color pack and shade. I started like, I'm going to do portraits and I'm going to do like realistic animals and stuff like that. All of it packed into one, like, which was obviously silly. And
do you think you just found the direction that you wanted to specialize in, and there was no point in learning, and there's no point in wasting time in the other?
Yeah, I mean, there was points in wasting time in the other things, like, but I would never get to do what I actually wanted to do. There was point, but I didn't see it fitting, because I thought, like, if you incorporated all of those techniques into the one tattoo, why not just do the one tattoo instead of slowly do this? Like, so I progressed a lot faster than everybody else that would take like a 2-year apprenticeship and whatever. And then, the rest is just self-taught. And I moved into rock and roll tattoo, made a portfolio on my best friend and my missus. And that's my best friend as well. Like, best thing that ever happened to me. Suzanne.
She gets how you mentioned.
I love you, baby.
I love you for letting me tattoo all over your body when I didn't really know what I was doing.
Well, I did. And she could see, obviously, and I'm certain she knew, but she lent me a skin because she believed in me, like, and I love that, like, and she's a creative as well, like, so.
So all that led to you having your own tattoo place, opening your own business?
So it's myself and my business partner, Oscar. So he owns the studio. I went into the studio after leaving Rock and Roll Tattoo because there was a whole huge deal that went on with the studio and whatever. So I went into business with him. And we have our underground kind of thing, members only tattoo. And it's fantastic, man.
That's good. It's a good setup, and I've met Oscar a few times as well. He's a nice guy.
Great guy, man.
Nice
and I'm so thankful.
Super enthusiastic.
He
wasn't even doing my tattoo, and he was like, "Whoa, man, that's well cool. I love that." Like, it just makes you feel a bit better when you're
It does. Especially when it's another artist, like somebody that's been tattooing for several years of his life, like, and if he says it's cool, like, and he's kind of a guy that's very honest, so he'll let you know. So got into the studio, and my progression was like rapid, like super fast. I picked up everything like quickly, and obviously got invited to a studio in Hollywood.
How did that come about?
So my missus started sending my portfolio to several different studios that were big, to see whether I was kind of worthy to do a guest spot in one of them, like, and you get responses from them like inviting you to come and do a guest spot, like, because your portfolio is good enough, which I never believed I was good enough. I still don't think I'm good enough. Really? Like, I think I've got so many levels of progress, and learning every day.
And is the desire still there? You just want to get better and better?
1,000,000%. Like, I want to be the best at what I do, and anything I do. If I'm folding a towel, it has to be perfect. That's it. Just like your tattoo, like, like other people will quit after 5 hours and say like, okay, I'm done, like, but 10 hours later and I'm still there, like, like breaking my back, and but it has to be perfect or I can't switch off from
very high standards. And that's why Literal Ink is a successful business now.
Yeah, totally.
Some of the work that you've done is incredible, and it's taken you over to Hollywood for a successful guest spot, and you look like you were loving life.
Man!
I was watching your story updates. And, was it the LA Lakers basketball game?
Yeah.
You were featured on the screen.
On the screen, my first ever basketball game. I don't even know about basketball, really. Like, I just know the players, the superstars and stuff like that. So I wanted to go see, LeBron and Steph Curry playing against each other, and I got really good. And don't now, because I can pay for it. I refuse to do anything like, half-heartedly. It has to be like, I'm going to get the best seat, like close to the guys and stuff. Exactly. Like, like I earned it. Like, all this was sweat.
What's the future for you then? What's the future for yourself?
The future for me, to have the happiest life and give my little family best life that they could possibly ever have. My wife already has a good life. She comes from a really good family. One of the most wonderful, well, if not the most wonderful human beings I've ever met.
Your wife's family?
My wife, her mom, her dad, they're so kind to me. They believe in me genuinely, like, like my father-in-law got his whole rally car wrapped in literal ink all over it, kind of thing.
They're from rural Aberdeenshire as well.
Yeah, the farm. They don't even know about this kind of thing, like,
How does, I hope you don't mind me asking. So they're tending to, I don't know if it's a farm that's just crop or if it's got cattle or sheep or that. So I just imagine an older couple working away in their farm, like something you would see on TV.
I know,
and then
right?
His daughter rocks up with you, dripping with diamonds and tattoos, and like
She's covered.
Did they just welcome you with open arms straight away?
Oh, well, see, this is the thing that you've got wrong, right? So you're thinking these guys are living in a farm, secluded from everything and whatever. My father-in-law is a highly successful multi-millionaire at a different business in like steel fabrication and things like that.
As such.
He was a farmer his whole life, and he still farms the land and things like that on the side. Well, he's a workaholic, 24/7 work. Christmas Day, he's out in the field with his digger and stuff like that, doing stuff. High work ethic. But my mother-in-law, she was like a policewoman and things like that. And, she knows a lot more about the world, and they live this fantasy life kind of thing. They've got 2 rally teams in the SRC rally.
So they're living life to the full. But again, they've earned it. They've worked hard for it.
Oh, they totally, and they deserve
so many
it.
Sacrifices throughout the years to be able to get to where they are now. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. As soon as somebody says, oh, he's a millionaire or she's a millionaire, people think, oh, well, they're just lucky and they've had it easy.
Oh, no, it's not old money.
No,
this is money that they made
it's
together.
Not hand-me-down money that
No. Totally not.
We'll start to bring the podcast to a conclusion now, but in your life and your tattoo artistry, what's the biggest compliment someone could give you?
In tattooing, biggest compliment. Just basically saying thank you for changing my life in this minute way, people, when they wear a tattoo these days, it's like clothing, but obviously for you, it's like something that represents you and your life story and things like that, like if you give somebody something beautiful to look at, it always gives them that beautiful memory at the same time. So you're keeping somebody's memory alive.
Yeah. There must be a big trust. Obviously, someone's placing their trust in you to permanently mark their body for the rest of their life.
Totally, it's an honor. Yeah. It totally is an honor. So the biggest thing I would say is like, I get someone like you that comes back to see me. Yeah. Like if I was terrible, nobody's coming back.
No, of course.
If I was Tam from down the road, Tam can do that for 50 quid, that's not me.
Final question, Brendon. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Being a good husband and possibly a good dad.
Is that we insight in the future?
That's it. Being the best at anything I do, or trying to be the best at it.
Amazing. Brendon, thanks so much. Generally, like a genuine inspiration. I think that when people listen to this, they should really have a think about how they view their own life and try and put things into perspective a lot more. I'm quite big on perspectives and how people in the Western world view trivial things as like these major life-defining moments, and they get so stressed out about the most minuscule things. And then we hear someone of your story that grew up with abuse from the early years. They witnessed their mum getting beat up several times by multiple partners, her head split open. You witnessed your dad, or you had to observe your dad's murdered body at the funeral. Racial abuse, gang warfare, threats to your life. I mean, that's all before you hit 18. That is still as a child, But I think you should be commended for being brave enough to define your own life by taking yourself away from that situation when so many other people would have became part of that problem. They would have then just acted in the way that they've been forced to witness throughout their life. But to leave the country at 18 and come over here, enjoy society, make an effort with society, fit in, do your thing, be you, become a successful tattoo artist, now a husband, your own business, and a genuine good person, man. Honoured to meet you, and thanks very much.
Oh, thank you so much, man. And you're an inspiration as well, bro. You really are, man. So thank you for having me.